Welcome to episode 9 of the Eastside Morales Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Garcia Vega. And on this week's episode of the Eastside Morales Podcast, we have Miami's own DJ EFN. Now, I met EFN a few weeks ago at South by Southwest along with Paul from Drink Champ Sports. Both gentlemen were very approachable and they took their time out to speak with me. Although our time was brief, we were able to exchange information. So a few emails later, a few weeks later, we got DJ EFN on the Eastside Morales Podcast. Make some noise for that. Now, let's get into it. EFN was kind enough to take time out and talk, the music business. We talked the Coming Home series. We talked Cuba. We talked Haiti. We talked Drink Champs. We talked about a lot of things. So kick back, do what you do, whether you riding, whether you chilling at the crib, however you taking this in, vibe with us. Eastside Morales, DJ EFN, let's go.
Okay, so let's get going, man. I wanted to start off by, just talking about, I know some of your history. But I kind of want to know how things changed for you since Drink Champ started because, you do have a rich history in music, but not too many of us knew who you were, outside of Miami.
Right.
And meeting you at South by, you were getting stopped pretty much, every few groups of people, So how have things changed for you in regards to that, like fame, I guess I would say?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed in terms of being a recognized face when it comes to like the hip hop community. My name to a degree has always resonated, but mostly within like the industry folks. I was always like the behind the scenes dude, mixtape DJ. I've never really been a dude that wants so much to put my face out there. It was more about my brand, my DJ name, my company, Crazy Good Productions, and the projects that I put out or the artists that I back. I'm always about pushing those things in terms of brand instead of a face of myself. But it's definitely taken on its own, it's changed completely and with Drink Champs, I mean, it's just a whole different monster altogether, man.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I was referring to. That, I know you're pretty well known throughout the industry, but taking on this whole new monster, has changed things, in that regard. But I want to kind of take it back to the Crazy Hood days. I've been doing a lot of research on you in particular, and I was listening to the Juanette podcast, and you were kind of explaining about your early days hitting up these different conventions, these music conventions and music conferences back in the days.
Right.
Kind of walk us through how you guys would organize that and what was the intention of what were you trying to get out of it when you guys were out there marketing and promoting yourself?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I started the company Crazy Hood before I actually was able to start DJing because I didn't have the money to even buy my turntables yet. But to put out a concept like a crew or a company, which I really made it a point to create a company versus just being a crew with friends, because what I did is I studied, first of all, the only reason I even got involved in this is because I was, such a huge fan of the music. I lived and breathed the culture as a kid, growing up, and I really saw an opportunity to get involved on the ground level, at least in my city. I knew I could probably, make a dent and make a difference in my own city. So that's what propelled me to start the company. And then I had a bunch of friends that were like-minded. And although a lot of my friends thought it was totally insane to think that we could create a company that could impact hip-hop in any kind of way, we still went, and tried to do it anyways. And so we started this company, and like I said, it was all about being professional because I would study through the magazines, through reading interviews, and I would study like locally we had Two Life Crew, Luke Skywalker, Luke records, you know, the Rap A Lot records, the Ruthless records. Those type of companies I would just see, you know, study what they were doing, and not that I could ever compare myself to them, but I would just take little tidbits. Even Master P, when he came on the scene, was a huge inspiration, and then eventually even Wu-Tang with just the whole crew element and the different artists. All these things I took pieces of to try to create my own, you know, our own identity as a company. And so what we started to do is just the basic thing we could do locally was start parties, like hip hop parties. There wasn't a lot of hip hop venues in Miami. It was really left up to house parties and warehouse parties and little, you know, renting out a ballroom and throwing jams. So that's what we would do. Unfortunately, our first jam got shot up by some rival gangs, and the cops were already like on the hunt for our name. They said that if they ever saw, you know, we would either go by CHP or Crazy Hood Productions. So CHP was on the flyer. So they said if they ever saw CHP, they were going to shut us down. So I don't think it was a while before we did another party. But then shortly after, like about a year or two, so this is '93 that I started the company. I started DJing. I got my tables and I started DJing, and I started making the mixtapes and circulating them around the neighborhood and then around the city, and then mailing them out to all the labels. And I was very, very aggressive with like trying to do things that I thought that other people might just not do, even though it's common sense. Like I would go through all the magazine articles and, you know, find any numbers or any fax numbers, because back then a lot of people were using faxes versus emails, and I would just like cold call people and I would do these fax campaigns. I would just mass fax all these companies with like a flyer that said DJ EFN or Crazy Hood and what we were doing, and people would get annoyed by it, but they were taking notice. They were like, yo, this is kind of crazy. They would see that, you know, it was kind of ill that they were getting like these mass faxes. And then to get back to your original question, you know, there's no way that we could have impacted or learned, you know, there was going to be a cap on what we could do from where we're at in South Miami. So I saw that there were these conventions that they were going on, these hip hop conventions, and I felt like that's the only place that I can actually either, you know, learn and network with people. And luckily, after Jack the Rapper, which was in Orlando, if I'm not wrong, they started doing How Can I Be Down in Miami, which was super convenient for me. And we started going to those. Those were happened for a couple of years in Miami, and then they moved to Bahamas and Puerto Rico and Jamaica, actually. And I went to those as well. And I would just, you know, go there and meet the artists. And it was a different time in hip hop. Like, a lot of these artists were from different, like, you know, LA or New York. So for them to come to Miami, these people were all young, you know, like the Biggies and the Bustas and the Big Puns and the you know, the Ice Cubes and all these guys. They were still young guys, and so they're in a different city, and for someone in a different city like a DJ to know them and recognize them, believe it or not, they were geeked off that shit. So they were showing me a lot of love too, and you know, these artists wanted DJs in these cities and these other cities to advocate for them, so they were really open to talking and exchanging info and doing drops and freestyles and whatnot. So those conventions had a huge part in the development of my brand as Crazy Hood and DJ EFN.
So aside from Nori, who are some of the contacts that you made back then that you still have relationships with today?
Man, I'm really bad at thinking of specific people, but it's just everything. Almost everybody I've met in those days, to a degree, I'm still in contact with. I preach to people. I talk about, you know, like giving advice to younger cats or whatever. Like, the number one thing to do is cultivate relationships in this industry, because it's worth a lot more than money. Mm-hmm. And being a kid with little means, you know, what we would do as a company with my boys, my crew, we would pay dues every month to kind of have like a little nest egg, you know, a little bank account with some bread so that we can invest in these promotional things that we would do. We would have weekly meetings. We were very, very serious in what we were trying to do. And that's what set us apart from any other local crews that might have been popping at the time locally, but we surpassed them in longevity because they didn't see the long picture, the long game, and they weren't built for that. They weren't organized enough or serious enough. So I mean, when I would meet these people, like, I would stay in contact with them, and I never abused of my contacts. I never asked too much or too, like, whatever I asked of, I always try to give something in return in terms of what value do I have for this person. So for example, I started a marketing company in Miami, and for, some of these people, if they looked out for me, if they gave me freestyles or they sent me leaks for my mixtape or connect me, I would in turn promote them how I would promote Crazy Hood, and I would advocate for these artists and stuff. So they knew that they had someone here that, added value to them. They're not just like, I'm not just asking for stuff. I'm just like, look, one hand washes the other, basically, is what it is. Yeah. And that, I've always kept that mantra, like, if you fucked with me from day one, or you really looked out for me, there was, I'm never going to turn my back on you. Now, obviously you can only do what you can do. And I've talked, people have talked about me where they've said EFN he's going to do what he can do for you. And if he can't do it, he's just going to let you know. Like, I'm not going to front. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, this business is based on hype. And it's the downside of this industry. Everybody talks a good game, but when it comes down to doing it, they're just full of shit. They're just blowing hot smoke up your ass. So I've always tried to not do that to people and do that. I call it the industry talk.
Yeah, you try to be the one that leads by example of not being that way.
Right.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because similar to you, I live in San Antonio, Texas, but I'm not originally from San Antonio. I'm from Massachusetts, but I've lived in Florida, I've lived in New York, places like that. Typical Puerto Rican growing up, bouncing from place to place. But when I moved to San Antonio, I took the same approach that you did. I reached out to different labels and things like that because I just wanted to be involved. I started off, rapping and things like that, but slowly it was like, no, I don't want to do this. I want to be behind the scenes. I want to be more involved with these artists and these labels and things like that. So I spent a lot of time doing that, building relationships. But then about 4 or 5 years ago, I got to a point where it was just like, I need to do something different. If I'm going to continue doing this, I need to learn how to do business. So I left music alone in general, and I started a wood pallet business. I wanted to do something that was totally out of the box, something I had no past in. I'm not a carpenter or anything like that. But I wanted to challenge myself to do something and finish out the job. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because now I'm coming back into the fold. And the contacts that I've had in the past, I never had any bad relationships with or anything like that. But I'm still reluctant to reach out to those people because I've been out of the loop for so long. And I don't want to seem like, hey, do me a favor, this type of deal. So, I mean, for me personally, like, how would you, hearing this from me, what do you think about that? Like me trying to get back in here, because if you're out of the loop, if you're out of it for a year or so, people completely forget about you, and
absolutely.
So I feel like I have a challenge. I'm not scared of the challenge because I went through a lot of shit just to start my business, but just moving forward. And I'm just asking you as an OG in the game, you know what I'm saying? Like, your opinion on that.
I mean, look. Personally, what I would do is I would just let everybody know that you're back in the business, and let them know what you're doing, but not asking them for any specific help. Just letting them know, this is what I'm doing, and if they need you, they know they can reach you, that you're back in the loop, and then what you do is you just like every so often check in with these people, just letting them know, what you're up to. Again, not asking for anything from them while you keep building, and then as you keep building, these people, because you're back in their thought pattern, because every so often you're reminding them, if you keep doing what you're doing and you're doing you're doing what you need to be doing, you're gonna start to like create this energy and this buzz again or whatever it is, and eventually people are gonna start coming, like, oh, you know what, let's do this. Like it'll come to you, like it'll happen. It'll just happen organically, versus you trying to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm not the guy to try to force stuff on anybody. So, okay, so enough about me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of ask you, your opinion on that. But,
Right.
okay, so keeping up with the relationships, because from where I'm sitting, I feel like you're at this point, and I don't know you personally, I'm just talking about from where I'm sitting at, where I opened by saying, a lot of people didn't know who you are, but a lot of people, but you're well known in the industry. I feel like you definitely you and your team worked your ass off to get to where you're at. But those relationships that you did cultivate definitely, provided opportunity in terms of I heard you mention Godfrey as far as the podcast, as well as I can't remember the other guy's name for Revolt before Revolt.
Ramon.
What's his name?
Ramon.
Okay, Ramon. Those guys. So, I mean, can you talk a little bit about each one of those guys and the past or the history you've had with them?
Yeah, I mean, those are two different situations in the sense that Godfrey is actually like a high school friend. He's okay. A little bit younger than me. We're from the same neighborhood. I know his family. Like, he's just someone that I've seen over the years, and he's always been dedicated to, like, the gaming world and internet radio, then turning into podcaster. And he's always been, but he's an avid hip-hop fan, so his face was always around whatever I was doing or whatever events I was going to. So we were always talking about stuff. And it just came to, like, our roads crossed when I was trying to figure out how to recreate the same platform that me and Nori were doing on Sirius XM and just do something different, but doing the same thing, but in a different platform. And my boy was always trying to put me on to podcasting. So that's how Godfrey came into the picture. And then his podcast got on CBS, and he just asked me if I wanted him to walk us over to CBS and see if CBS would be interested. And that's how that happened. Ramon is more of like the ladder that I was explaining in terms of like developing and cultivating industry relationships. And he's someone that worked at MTV and again through the mixtape and being that go-to person in Miami when it came to like just the whole mixtape scene and stuff like that. He was a producer at MTV that did Mixtape Mondays with Sway, and they reached out to me on several occasions to do stuff for Mixtape Mondays on MTV. There was one year that MTV was doing their awards in Miami, and they ran all like the hip hop type of like initiatives for MTV. So they reached out to me to do different things revolving around the hip hop scene in Miami and write articles for MTV.com, et cetera, et cetera. So when I did the first Coming Home documentary, which we could talk about a little bit later, but when I did my first documentary film as an amateur, and I spoke to Ramon, I just happened to mention it to him because we were doing a screening in New York, and this is in end of 2012. He actually showed up late to the screening, didn't even make the screening. He had just come off a flight, but he came just to tell me that he had got a new job at this new network that Puppy was starting called Revolt TV, and if I had a copy of my film, and he hadn't seen it, mind you, he just he knew enough of, like our relationship was so strong that he believed in whatever I was doing. He's like, let me get the film and let me take it over to Revolt and see if they'd be interested in doing something with you. And he took the film over and they licensed, that was my first film, they licensed it, and they licensed the 4 that have followed that, the series that I've developed off of that first film. And that's how that relationship, that's how that worked out.
Yeah,
that Drink Champs is at Revolt now too.
Say that again?
Not to mention that also Drink Champs is at Revolt now as well.
Yeah, that's what I was, and it's kind of funny how that connected for you guys, because you had something totally different going on, and it kind of came back full circle. So that's pretty dope how that everything stayed in house with you guys over there.
Yep.
Coming Home, I watched Cuba and Peru. I started Haiti, but I haven't finished Haiti. And recently you just released Vietnam.
Correct.
Very dope. It gave that no reservations Anthony Bourdain feel to it. You know,
that's a compliment, because that's the goal, man.
It really did, you know, because I've seen other shows, you know, just not even, you know, I mean, nobody's doing hip hop right now, but except for you guys, but just the feel of actually getting in there with the people, not hitting a resort or doing anything touristy. You guys like actually went in there, and I mean, you guys have a you know, a special relationship with Cuba, but you know, Peru. Right. I mean, come on, like nobody. I never thought about Peru, you know what I'm saying, as far as hip hop. But yeah, I just wanted to say that that's really dope, and I appreciate you guys doing that for the culture. And it was something that started as a personal journey. Like, what was like? So how did you guys take it from this personal journey of saying, hey, we just want to record it, to actually, you know, making it this next thing, or taking it to Raymond?
Well, like you said, it was a personal journey, and it started just as an idea as a Cuban American, you know, being born in the United States, but, you know, being raised by my Cuban parents and my grandparents, and just always being totally immersed in Cuban culture, but feeling like I'm never going to be able to see this country because of the politics. It got to a point in my adulthood, because as a kid, my grandparents and my parents, it's very taboo, like for Cuban Americans of that generation that came here because of the revolution, it's very taboo to go to Cuba. They feel it's like kind of like almost treasonous if you were to go, because you'd be giving money to the Castro regime. And so they would always like talk against it. It was like you couldn't even say it around my grandparents, and they would get mad. So, you know, I never really thought of it until I got a little older, and I realized that at some point something's going to give, and Cuba's going to open up again. Something's going to give. And I knew that was going to happen. And so around 2010, and I mean, earlier than that, I started thinking about it, but 2010, I got really serious, and I said, I want to go to Cuba now. I felt that it was, like, urgent to go, because I really felt that it was about to change. And I wanted to go while it was still in the bubble that it was in, so that I can at least think that I'm seeing it in somewhat what my parents and my grandparents saw. Even though I knew it would be falling apart, at least it's still the same building, you know?
Yeah.
So I made it a point to start organizing this trip. And while I was organizing this trip, and again, this is just solely on some personal, like family type heritage voyage, and nothing to do with hip hop yet. Then I met a friend of mine who I was consulting about going to Cuba, and he had been to Cuba on several occasions. And he was also Cuban American, and he was explaining to me how he was dealing with the hip hop artists in Cuba. And I was like, man, you know what? I would love to meet the hip hop artists out there. I really think that would be super dope to meet like our counterparts in Cuba and see how they're doing it over there. And then my other homeboy, who's definitely a part of the first 3 films, my partner Garcia, he's also Cuban American. So I said, look, let's make a film. Let's document this trip. Let's film, you know, our experience, and let's come back and let's put this amateur film together, even if it's just for our kids and our grandkids and our family. Like, we didn't think anybody else would care about it. We didn't think it would be any good at all. Mm-hmm. So we went, we filmed it, we came back, we put this. It took us, maybe like 6 months to put this film together, and then and we screened it at a local theater for some friends and family, and people and a lot of friends that weren't Cuban or weren't even Hispanic or Latino, they came, and everybody immediately said how much they loved the film. And then the film ended up getting picked up by some film festivals, and it won some film festival nods, and then and then it took a life of its own. And in that whole process, people from that weren't Cuban or weren't even Latino were telling us how much they were inspired to want to go back to their parents' homeland or their country of origin, and how dope it is to see the hip hop, how it is in whatever that country could be or whatever. And I was just like, man, we could do that for the hip hop community. We could be the Anthony Bourdains of hip hop and explore these countries through hip hop culture, through the common language that is hip hop. And that's how it all came to be, man. And I've been, it's such a passion project, and I enjoyed doing the film so much that basically each film I licensed, and I would just take that money and reinvest it in the next film. That's what I've been doing. But the ultimate goal of the films is to roll out a series like an Anthony Bourdain. Like, I wanted to get that level of production, that level, man, is the goal for it.
Yeah, and it would be definitely needed, you know, something like that we can all relate to. Because most of us love watching Anthony Bourdain shows. So, I'm talking about like hip hop fans, and
right.
So it kind of, because it takes you there without actually having to go there, but it makes you want to go there.
Right.
So you're executive producer of these because initially I thought it was I just thought it was you, but I didn't realize the role that Garcia played as well, and that was before I watched it, so it was all assumption prior. But I kind of wanted to know, as far as executive producer, what does that role entail, as far as when you guys are doing those projects for Coming Home?
I mean, I conceptualized the whole idea and I put them all together. You know, basically I do everything in terms of the organization of the whole trip and the idea and what and the point that I'm trying to get across in the film. And Garcia, he directed the first one, Peru, and Haiti. Me and him, I co-directed Haiti, and Vietnam, I did it solely by myself. I executive produced and directed it, Vietnam.
Okay.
And right now we're about to embark on our fifth installment next week. I'm leaving on Saturday actually to Colombia, and I'm going to be directing and executive producing that one as well.
That's going to be dope. That's going to be dope. Okay. When you guys went to Cuba, one thing I was trying to understand was the import-export thing. So you're allowed to import stuff from the U.S., but you can't export out of Cuba. Is that right? Because you guys were bringing, like, you guys showed, people. I don't know if you guys brought some stuff, but people were bringing, like you said, TVs and all types of stuff, people on the island.
Yeah, no. What that's all about is basically the island is so poor, the family members that are here, they go to Costco or to whatever, and they buy a bunch of shit and they take it over there. It's not an import-export thing. It's literally just taking goods to their families over there.
But the U.S. allows that?
Yeah, I mean, it's by pound. Like, they allow people to take a certain amount of pounds a month.
Oh,
they definitely allow the way the U.S. I mean, this is changing every day. This is changing right now. Ever since Obama opened it up, it's changing every day. But the way the U.S. looked at it, the U.S. looked at it as we were aiding the people of Cuba. Like, it had nothing to do with the government because it was family to family member or friend to friend or whatever. So it was looked at as aid to the people. But there was nothing to. But Cubans, like, for example, there was an embargo that wouldn't allow. You couldn't bring back cigars. You couldn't bring back Havana Club rum from Cuba because it was illegal here due to the embargo. So in terms of exporting from there to here, it wasn't happening. But you can take goods there because you're helping the people. You're aiding the families. You're taking. They would take anything from diapers to tires to TVs. Like, it was just anything. Anything that the family wanted to give their family over there, they would take.
So what was your, I know it's captured, but what was your initial, impression as far as getting to Cuba? Because I know like I said, I lived in Florida for a few years, and some of my closest friends, while I was in Florida, were all Cuban. So there's really, and even to this day, I'm friends with them, and, they have really strong opinions about, the Obama administration, just anything close to socialist,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And they have their reasons why, people, you got two different sides of the coin. People were pro, and then you got people that don't even understand the history and the politics that still supported Castro and things like that. But for somebody who was raised in the hip hop culture, and especially, I would say more, correct me if I'm wrong, but you gravitated towards more of the lyricism, more conscious style. Even I know you're friends with dead prez, and they're pro socialism. At least from I'm not gonna say anymore, but from Let's Get Free and things like that. You have those two different things. You got your family that probably has their views about Castro, just like you said earlier, in that regime, and then you have this hip hop culture that also raised you, that's pro Castro, I would say, in a sense. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but
more liberal, more left. Yeah, I mean, look, I grew up on both sides of the coin because as a child I grew up in a very right wing ideology because my grandparents and parents are identical to what you're describing as your friends. And my father, like what you'll see when you watch the Coming Home Vietnam, my father, came here by himself young. He was smuggled out of the country. He grew up in an orphanage in the United States. Grew up when he felt old enough, he wanted to give back to this country, and he volunteered for the Marines and went to fight the communists in Vietnam. So my family is very, obviously communism, anti-Fidel Castro to the death. So, and just to put it in perspective as of right this moment, my grandma to this day, my dad's mom, has not seen the film, has not wanted to talk about it with me. She was extremely angry that I went, and wants nothing to do with that film. So it's still there, and I grew up with that same mentality because I grew up with that being, pushed on me as a little kid. So I grew up hating Castro and hating, obviously hating the communists and hating what they did. Now, as I got older, it's not that I don't hate or don't. I educated myself on history, and the thing is, it's different you can have different thoughts and you can have different feelings and sentiments when you look at things through a historical lens, but it's different when you live certain things because, for example, for example, let's just say overseas, like in Iraq, if a U.S. Marine killed accidentally some Muslim guy's son because he thought he was a terrorist and killed him accidentally, that guy's going to hate the U.S. and the U.S. is the worst thing that ever happened to Iraq, and the U.S. are demons to him. That's the very narrow scope of history. Like, you can't tell that guy the U.S. isn't evil because they killed his kid. You know what I'm saying? So you can't tell my parents and my grandparents, and this is really not a really good explanation, but I'm just explaining that I respect what my family went through and what they lived. But when you can look at history from afar and kind of just look at it as a whole versus individual stories, you kind of start to feel a little bit impartial to it, and you're not as moved by it. It doesn't hurt me as much. So what happened was I wanted to go for myself because all I've been told is if you ever go to Cuba, you're going to get kidnapped, you're going to get put in prison, they're going to torture you, they're going to do all this crazy stuff to you. And maybe that might have been true maybe 10 years ago. But when I went, none of that happened. In fact, I felt no fear for anything happening, no government pressure. I mean, I saw maybe at some point some government, soldiers, but the way that I looked at it is they're so poor over there, they don't even have the energy to try to enforce certain things, So I didn't feel that same vibe. Now, I'm not telling you that I'm totally all the way to the left. I just feel what I feel is that the embargo on Cuba has been there for so long, and it hasn't helped the Cuban people. It hasn't taken Castro down or the regime, and it hasn't helped the Cuban people. So I felt that my film and doing things like my film, going and talking to the people, and not about politics, just connecting someone from this side with someone from that side, and just on some intercultural thing, that might be the way to go versus this embargo that just blindly cuts people off. And I strongly believe that opening up the country in the long term is going to be the right thing. It's not going to change anything in the short term, but in the long term, I think it's the right thing to do because it's just the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and not getting any different results.
Oh yeah, definitely. So before getting off of the last question on Cuba for now would just be, a still personal one. How long do you think it would take, or what would it take for your family to go back and visit? Do you think that would ever happen, or it's just it would take a long time after the whole Castro regime is, or the borders open up. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you this. This is the beauty of the films, and then at the end of the day, I always say thank you hip hop, because all this is because of hip hop for me.
Definitely.
I was able, because of my experience and me going and coming back and talking to my mom, I was able to convince her to take a trip with me, and I took her back last year. It was the first time she'd been back in like 55 years.
Wow.
And she took me we went to her town where she lived, where she was born. Her best friend, her childhood best friend, still lived across the street, and she was able to go visit her and walk the streets like when they were children, and it was a beautiful thing, man.
That's pretty incredible, man. The things that hip hop can do, man. The power of hip hop. Amazing. Yeah,
man. It was amazing. And you know, as for my grandma's never gonna go back. She's already vowed it. But to put things in even more perspective, my grandma, you know, part of her anger is that she says how my her son, my father, he fought in the Vietnam War fighting the communists, this, that, and the other. And that's part of her anger towards all this, you know, just going to Cuba and communism. And my dad, and my relationship with my father is estranged, but we talk. My dad was who I thought might be like, you know, might not be happy that I went either, was actually saying, yo, I'm happy. If I could go, I would go. Because he suffers from injuries and just issues from the war. He's like completely handicapped. I mean, he doesn't have missing limbs or anything like that, but PTSD and shrapnel from grenades and all kinds of shit that he can't really do much. But you know, just to put it in perspective, he said he was happy that I was able to go and that he would go if he could. So I just think, man, with time, everything heals with time. And lastly, on this issue that convinced me about my thoughts on Cuba is that, and later what took me to Vietnam, is that we've had relationships with Vietnam, a political relationship for years now. And how the fuck can we have a political relationship with a country that thousands of Americans died in a war, but we can't with Cuba where no Americans died in a war?
I think that's one of those life questions that will go unanswered, man. I think the simple answer would be power and money, you know, but
no, it's money. It's money, and it's ignorance, man. But we could talk about this forever. I have a whole conspiracy theory, sort of say, about why it benefited even Cuban Americans in Miami, and you know. And if you go back, going to the Republican Party and everything, because remember, the Cubans in Miami had such a foothold politically, and Florida is such a big electoral state that we helped the Republicans in all these elections because of
Absolutely.
the Cubans being so pro-Republican, being such a Republican, you know, push. So there's a whole conspiracy that I have to that, and that at the end of the day, I feel it's less about the Cuban people and more about politics and money, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And Cubans definitely got a foothold of Florida. And I got a lot of respect for Cubans, but Florida's a weird state, man. And I live there, but it's a weird state, man. A lot of weird stuff happens out there, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I love my people because we're just, you know, we really like, we put it in. Like, we want to do something, we put it in, you know?
Nah, definitely Cubans, and I don't mean to cut you off, but definitely, with my experience, all the Cubans that I ran into were all go-getters. Like, they became successful. They put their kids through private school. They build business. They take their parents in, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one particular family that I'm referring to. But they came here, went to school. Their parents worked hard to get them right. They got right. They got their kids right, you know, and it's just, it's a beautiful thing to see. And I wish more Puerto Ricans would take a cue from that, but I think the Cuban experience and the Puerto Rican experiences are two completely different things.
Different, right.
But, you know, one thing I will say, and don't spoil it for me, and I know I'm late, but Haiti, that kind of, just from watching it, I was kind of like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? These guys are about to be in the middle of it. It seems like it's a whole different other animal, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Haiti, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but Haiti was one of the most exhilarating trips I've ever taken in my life. It was really like a fucking being on a crazy roller coaster. And it definitely was the poorest of the 4 countries that we've gone to so far. It was the poorest, but it really was a special trip. It really was, and you'll see, man. It's crazy. It's a crazy trip.
Yeah, Haiti got a raw deal politically as well, but I'm gonna watch it. I'm definitely gonna watch it. I already started it, and I guess the part where the guy on the intro when he was just saying about there's no hip hop in America, there's only business, and it kind of made me feel like, whoa, like you guys are in a dangerous place right now. You know what I'm saying? Because usually when you go to another country, or assumingly, you're coming from America, they already have this preconceived notion about you. You know, they're either gonna love you or they're not gonna love you. You know what I'm saying? And for you guys to put yourselves in that type of environment, you know what I'm saying? Kudos to you. You know what I'm saying? But you came back okay. You made a film out of it. So shout out to hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I tell people, and I think it sounds completely like kind of corny, but hip hop protects us. I look to hip hop to protect us in some of these areas that we go into.
Definitely. All right, let's change it up a little bit. I want to talk about your involvement with Mayday. I know you're the manager of Mayday. I didn't really know too much. I kept seeing the name out here because they've toured a few times out here in San Antonio, and but it wasn't until that Fragile. And the only reason I knew about that song is because my wife and my kids, they just kept playing it and playing it and playing it. But it was a really good song. You know what I'm saying? But it led me to, do some more looking into them. And I didn't realize that Recognize was the kid from the BET battle, the 106 and Park battles, right? Or the MTV battles.
Right? Yeah, MTV. It was the
MTV,
yep.
Yeah, and I remember them, and I was like, oh shit, the way a career can go, So, I wanted to ask you about like how, how many years have you been managing them, and how did that happen?
Yeah, so I'm actually one. It's a management team of us, of 3 of us. One of my close friends and business partners, he lives in LA right now. His name is Kether. He's part of the management, and then my other homegirl Drea, she's part of the management. So I've known Mayday are again like you saw about Recognize Rec and Mayday. Actually, Rec was a solo artist, MC, freestyle battle MC, and then Mayday was actually a separate group at the time, and they've been a part of the Miami scene for a long time. So I've known these guys for years before I ever did any business with them. And it got to a point where we all were under the same umbrella. There was this company called South Beat Records, which funny enough was a record label that was funded by a big porn company. I don't know if you ever heard of like Bang Bros and Reality Kings. I don't know. It's I know. Familiar. Yeah. So these guys are in Miami. They're locals as well, and they started this record label. So they signed Recognize right off of that MTV battle, and they signed Mayday because they knew the guys. Because I think one of the Mayday guys had worked at the porn company doing like editing and stuff. So,
okay, so let me stop you real quick. So the production company for Bang Bros and Reality Kings and stuff like that created a record label? Is that what you're saying?
They created a record label called South Beat Records, and just to tie something else into that record label, under that record label, they also managed Kimbo Slice.
Oh, shit. Okay, so they were doing a lot of stuff over there, huh?
Yeah. I mean, they had tons of money. So this is like in the heydays of like the porn stuff. The porn stuff is kind of like took a hit like the music business. But so these, so then I got put on to become the vice president of marketing, the VP of marketing for the record label. They brought me in to do that. And what I did, because, this record label out of nowhere, and being that it was being funded by these porn guys, had like no street credibility, no credibility at all. So what I did is I took the only credibility that they could possibly own up to, which was Kimbo. And I took Kimbo's face and I made him the face of the record label. And we made this mixtape called Bare Knuckle Hit, where we put different tracks from the artist on the record label, had Kimbo hosting it, had Kimbo's face on it. So rest in peace to Kimbo, great guy.
I remember that. I remember those mixtapes.
Yeah, so that's me first working with Mayday before managing them. I was working with them as the VP of marketing for this record label. But then again, it was Mayday, which was a two-man group, straight up hip hop group, and recognized as a solo. So long story short, I ended up leaving the label because it just didn't work out for me. I didn't really feel the vibe of this porn company that was funding this label. I just didn't, I didn't like I just felt like they didn't have the right intentions. It was just money, just a lot of money and not a lot of like authenticity at this company. It just didn't work out for me personally. So I ended up leaving to continue to pursue my stuff with Crazy Hood Productions, which I was doing anyways at the time, but I just left the company. They actually brought in Jim Johnson. I don't know if you know the producer Jim Johnson, who's also from South Florida. He's a big producer, a Grammy winning producer. They brought in Jim Johnson at that time, and whatever. At some point, the label was, it became defunct. They stopped doing the label. Like the porn guys, in my mind, they were just doing it because they had the bread to do it, but it wasn't like their bread and butter. So when they were done playing with the toy, they were done. They stopped doing it. So Mayday and Recognize, were left in limbo, and the guys just started doing shows together, and Mayday started evolving into this hip hop band. They started adding like live band elements to it, and then they were doing so many shows with Recognize that Recognize just ended up kind of joining the band, the group. So it ended up being two MCs, and they had a drummer, they had bass guitar, they had keys, they had a DJ. So that's how Mayday came to be. And then after like a year after the label had gone down, they asked me to come see them perform, and I hadn't seen them yet as a full band. And when I saw them, it was just something new and fresh, and still very Miami. And I just loved, I just like seeing like dope shit, man, like just. And something that's just new and refreshing, and they're still dope MCs. Like Rec is just the illest MC, but then you got this like band who's making these funky beats live right there. And I would tell people it was like the Roots on crack. And so then I just thought it was so dope, and I was like, yeah, man, I would love to work with you guys again. And then that's when I came on, and they already had Drea working with them to a certain capacity, and then my homeboy Kether, who used to work at South Beat as well, I told him, well, look, if I'm going to come on, I'd like you to come on, because you used to work with them too, and he was like, all right, cool. So then that's when we got in as management, and that was maybe 2008, maybe.
Okay.
And the first thing that I started doing with them is just starting to build up their buzz. With getting them having artists featured, remixes with them, and we did a joint with Ace Hood, and we did this other joint with CeeLo and Mac Main from Young Money. We did a joint we did like a bunch of stuff, man, with just different hip hop artists from all different world, sides of hip hop, and just to show this new eclectic sound that was Mayday, and then eventually we got their music to Strange Music, which is Tech Nine's label, and then we ended up signing to Tech Nine.
Okay, so this project that you started working with them on, this was before they had a deal. This is just creating the buzz and everything again.
This was to create the buzz to eventually land in some kind of a situation, which it turned out to be the deal with Strange Music.
Pretty cool, man. And did you have a relationship with Strange Music prior to that, or was it somebody that one of the managers knew? Somebody over there, one of the
Yeah, no,
managers knew?
we had no prior connection to them, but it was funny because as we were shopping them to all the conventional record labels, all the record labels at the time were saying, hey, you know, this doesn't really sound like it fits our label, but you should really consider going to Strange Music, which was funny to us that people like consistently were telling us that. And, you know, at first we kind of felt like people were saying that to just get us out of their offices at the time. But then my homeboy Keller, who had just moved to LA from New York, his neighbor was actually good friends with the vice president of Strange, and she was able to get we released independent albums. She got an album that we had released at that time, got it to the vice president of Strange, Dave Weiner, who used to be at Priority Records during the Master P era. He's a guy who kind of like brought Master P over to Priority Records. So he's kind of like a legend, executive-wise, in hip-hop. He heard it. He loved it. He pushed it on Tech Nine, pushed it on Travis, who runs Strange Music. He was an advocate for us, and then finally Tech was touring in Florida, and they were like, "Look, man, go open up for the tour, and let Tech see you live." And that's basically kind of like your live demo. And the guys they opened up in Orlando for him. He loved it so much, he was about to do a show the next day in Fort Lauderdale. He said, "Please do it again in Fort Lauderdale." Boom, we did it again in Fort Lauderdale, and then he loved the group, so he was thinking of signing. And then I got the guys on this T-Pain video to do like a cameo in this T-Pain video, and Tech Nine saw the T-Pain video, and he was like, and then we also did these videos with Lil Wayne, where they were like the backup band in two Lil Wayne videos. And then he saw all this stuff going on, with all the buzz that we were creating, and Tech was like, let's grab these guys up before anybody else does. And then the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. I mean, you would think like, okay, so there was still a lot of work even when you got the look. You still had to convince them. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about it. For them, it was a big gamble. They hadn't had Mayday. Like, to me, I'm not one of those people that look at something like Mayday and be like scratching my head if it's hip hop or not. Like, my criteria is if people are rhyming, and it doesn't even matter at that point what the beats are. If they're rhyming, if they're rappers on there, if MCs, then it's hip hop. But some people were always like unsure of what Mayday was, and Mayday, it's an eclectic hip hop group. And so I just think that they weren't sure if their fans, the Strange Music fans, the Tech Nine fans, were gonna kind of get it, or if they wanted to bring in this band element into Strange. It was just, I just think they were hesitating on it. From Florida, they hadn't made that leap yet in terms of their roster. So I just think it took a little bit of nudging, a little bit more convincing, and then it worked out.
That's so funny that people, these labels would tell you, "Hey, take it to Strange, and you take it to Strange, and they're like, "We like it, but we don't know what to do with it," But you have to sell it to them, and it seems like it's a perfect fit, Mayday being on Strange Music, because Strange Music is a power, a quiet power that people seem to overlook and forget about, with those Master P, Cash Money and things like that. But Travis and Tech Nine, man, they've been killing it, and they've been the blue collar style for a long time.
Yeah,
a very long time.
I've learned so much from those guys, and even now, man, they're just, when you think that things would change, because the industry's always changing, but they study the industry, they really move with it properly, and those guys are just amazing, man. I can't say enough good things about them and the opportunities that have come up, for the guys from Mayday out of working with them. And Tech loves the guys, and they've produced two of Tech's biggest singles, which is Fragile, and there was one other one I can't think of that Mayday produced. But I think two of his biggest hits, maybe let's just say he had 5 hits, but 2 of them were produced and featuring Mayday.
Nice.
The Noose is the other one. The Noose.
Okay, so let's keep it in the vein of music. Another Time, the latest project that you released. When did you release that? Another Time, was that last year?
March 2015.
Oh,
But I
2000. So
still
it's been a
promote
couple
it like
years.
it came out yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, so what's up with you and music right now? You know, you released that a couple years ago, and obviously you have your plate full. You know, with Coming Home, the Drink Champs, and you know, with Mayday and things like that. Where does music, even though it's the nucleus to it all, but actually, you know, producing music or you know, cultivating it, you know, curating it. Like, where does that fall on your list of priorities right now? Do you have a plan for another project or anything like that?
I definitely, you know, I definitely wanted to get another project out in 2016, but the explosion of Drink Champs and, you know, and just my other, you know, still, you know, doing the Magic Mayday, Coming Home. I still have my marketing and consulting company. So, you know, just all these things. And then just what happened with Drink Champs just made it impossible to put together another project. But it's definitely on the top of my list. Again, I prioritize things, which might be, and I'm not going to tell you this is the right thing, but I prioritize things by how happy they make me. You know,
that's the best way to do it. To be quite honest.
Yeah. No, I know, but I know people that they feel that that's wrong because you know at the end of the day we all have responsibilities and we have to take care of our families and whatnot. But I feel that that all comes into play if you're happy. You're going to attract everything you need. But making music and putting out that album, which was a dream come true for me, I never thought I was going to actually be able to get that album off. Is something that I really want to do again. It was just so much fun to do, and it's just so fulfilling to put it together and then roll it out and promote it. And I know that. Just knowing that album still, you know, there's so many people that never heard it, you know, it excites me to know that there's just so much room to get more music out to more people that haven't heard what I put together, like what I can do. So yeah, I'm definitely going to put out an EP, you know, in the near future, and hopefully another full length, you know, within the next, you know, year and a half.
Well, to a lot of us that weren't aware of EFN, this is it's like a coming out party for you, I would say. You know, so for you to drop another project in the near future or whatever, I think would be really dope, considering all the momentum you've built throughout the years, but specifically with Coming Home and Drink Champs, that. Right. It's going to get a lot more people's attention, you know what I'm saying? In my personal opinion, just because.
No. I agree.
You're you know, you're a face, you know, there's a face now to EFN, you know. Okay. I wanted to ask you about your marketing and promotion. I know that's crazy hood, but what do you, like, what does that entail? Like, aside from doing Coming Home, you know, your Coming Home series, do you work with other brands? Because I know you said you're you know, you do consulting, marketing and promotion. Like, who do you work with, and how does that work?
So the company is called CHP Marketing and Promotions, and it's basically one of those evolutions that I took in. See, I tell people, like, if you want to pursue the arts or pursue music and entertainment, you got to go into it knowing that you may, you know, it's going to be very difficult to create a livable, you know, revenue stream. Like, it's just not that easy. You got to really put in years of work. It's only a small percentage of people that luckily get a big break and make money off grip, you know. So like, what I would do is I would figure out these other avenues that I can bring in revenue that's still in the same vein of what I'm doing, and it's not too much of a departure. And marketing and promotion was one of those things. And like I told you before, a lot of people, you know, they saw what I was doing locally for my brand and my company. You know, I had a street team. My crew at that time was like 20 deep. You know, we would ran with the T-shirt. Everybody had the T-shirts. We had the mixtapes. We would go selling mixtapes with T-shirts out the trunk of our cars. We would put up posters and stickers and do flyer campaigns. You name it. You know, we were doing it. And this is like in 93, 94, 95. So we made a name for ourselves as a brand that was being promoted properly. Like, we're just killing the streets. And I would use that as, you know, as leverage to help people that I was, that were working with me. But then also I started getting approached by companies to do it legitimately, as being their street team or their street team manager or their marketing manager in Miami, South Florida, or the southern region. And I worked with every company, every record label that was out, like from Capitol to Universal to Def Jam to Rockefeller to freaking Rocket Records to, everybody. I've worked with every record label, and then it's grown from that to brands like Bacardi and Coca-Cola, and I did movie companies and movie rollouts like Miramax Films, Universal Pictures. So that's something that I've been doing for years as just to just bring in added revenue. And then the consulting came out of just people like asking me, like, how do you do this and how do you do that? Or it could be, an independent record label, local independent record label that wants me to consult them for a couple of months, or it could be a big brand that wants to learn how can they do, precise guerrilla marketing in South Florida, and I'll consult them on that. So there's just different things that I do under the moniker of CHP Marketing and Promotion.
So you took your passion, knowledge, and experience and created a business around it.
Exactly.
Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. Okay, I gotta ask you this about Drink Champs. The Duck Down episode, you were going in on Capone. I was like, yo, slow down to your face. What's your relationship like with Capone?
You told me this when I saw you, right?
Yeah.
Because you're the only person that brought that up to me. I love Capone. That's my brother.
Well, I know you love it, because it seems like you guys have a relationship like where it's, I never felt like you were, like there was a beef or anything like that. No, nothing like that. I felt like, when you're with your homeboys and you got that one homeboy that you could just mess with, you know what I'm saying? It kind of felt like that. But, rarely is your homeboy like a Capone, you know what I'm saying? So,
right.
he's done time, he's a street dude, you know what I'm saying? And, so I just thought it was funny, you know what I'm saying? Just, the relationship, just the way you guys were going at each other, you know what I'm saying? But, I just had to ask the question, because when I was listening to it, I was like, if I ever get the chance to talk to EFN, I gotta ask him about this,
Well, let me tell you, let me explain a couple things to you, and then you can, and you can respond to me. And I actually, just to be quite honest with you, I probably have like 10, 15 more minutes that I can talk.
Okay, that's fine. We're almost done.
But just so you know, this is just me, definitely not speaking for Nori. I rarely listen or watch the episodes after we do them, and because of the factor of drinking and all that, I usually don't remember certain things. So by you telling me this, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh wow, okay, all right.
So and the reason why that episode is even more specific why I wouldn't remember, a lot of people don't realize, like, sometimes you'll watch or hear an episode and we sound completely out of it. And the reason being, a lot of times, is sometimes we record 2 to 3 episodes within like a 6-hour period. And one episode, we're drunk already by the end of that episode. So if we go into a second episode, you best believe we're trashed. And that's what happened with the Duck Down episode. We had recorded the Ice-T episode right before that.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, and then
so we were already trashed.
Didn't you have an Ice Cube? Wasn't Ice Cube there the same day, or was it the day before?
No. That actually was the next week. We had to go to Atlanta for him. It was supposed to be there in New York, but the snowstorm screwed that up.
Okay.
So we were trashed, and that day was Capone's birthday, so Capone already showed up trashed, so he was trashed already. So it's just all around bad, and then you have all those people, because when the episode has like a lot of guests, that is not necessarily my personal favorite. I like it when it's less people, because it's just more, it's less chaotic. Yeah. But you can bet when there's a lot of people and it's our second or third episode, it's going to be, a shit show in terms of like how we're going to act. So So now you can tell me, what is it exactly that you said that you heard or saw that happened with Capone?
Oh, okay. So when he came in, I'm not don't quote me because I don't know exactly what you said word for word, but you just kept like, all right, Capone, that's enough. Get the fuck out of here. Like kind of like just, but you were just messing with him. But his response to you was just always love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was just like, it was him. You know what I'm saying? You just, him and him, you know, because he was involved in the conversation and he was saying a lot of wild stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of good shit that I didn't even know about. You know, that whole Foxy thing. You know what I'm saying? That was like cool information that I never heard in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's probably just part of the shitstorm for us because.
No, it was a great episode. It was probably one of my favorite episodes. You know, I'm a big fan of Duck Down, but just to, you know, you don't prefer big crowds, and I think it was like, you know, at times it was just a lot of people trying to get their words in, but I think a lot of good information got passed in that interview. I just thought it was funny because I've never heard you like that, and I've listened to Drink Champs was the first podcast I ever listened to, ever subscribed to, and
oh, dope.
And so, you know, obviously I've heard them all, so I never heard you that way. And so I was just like, man, these guys sound like they're really close, but, I was just curious about it. But I knew you had
yeah, no. And then that's the thing with Pone. Pone is like the coolest motherfucker in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure that catch him on the wrong there, or first of all, if you don't know him, you can't talk to him like that.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And I'm not even telling you that I could talk to him like that all the time. Like I said, catch him on the wrong, but he really is like, that's my dog, that's my brother. Like I've known him just a little bit under what I've known Nori because he was locked up when I met Nori. And he's just a really good dude, and and it was his birthday that day, and I was probably just fucking with him, but it just sounds crazy when I'm fucked up. Like I'm Cuban and I'm I could get pretty aggressive when I drink, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Nah, but he was all love. Like he was like, oh, I'm gonna do it for you, E. I'm gonna do it for you. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about it. That's how he was responding. Because it was just a lot of chatter between everybody. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
But anyways, I just had to ask that question because that's what stood out to me. But okay, so that's pretty much, you know. I mean, I could go on for days with you, but you know what I'm saying. We can go ahead and wrap this up, man. So I got a sneak peek. You said, you know, you're going to Colombia. So I'm assuming that's going to be the next installment for the Coming Home series.
The next installment. So yeah, I leave Saturday, going to Bogotá, Medellín, Barranquilla. So looking forward to that.
All right. And Drink Champs, anything you want to share about that? Anything coming up?
Drink Champs is right now, you know, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, which is crazy. That it's crazy that it's happened so fast, but it's crazy how much we've done in 1 year. And you know, we're in the middle of renegotiating all of our deals with CBS and Revolt and everybody. And we'll have some new announcements, you know, depending on how that goes. But it's all looking, you know, on the up and up right now. And, you know, everything, Drink Champs, you know, what can we say, man? Like, it's been an amazing ride, and let's just see, you know, how far we can take it.
One last question. How real is it that you guys are going to actually create a network, you know, with Drink Champs Sports and things like that? Because I know Nori tries to recruit everybody that comes on. But, but I just wanted to know how real that was.
No, it's definitely real, and that's something in our renegotiations that we're kind of setting up to actually happen. I personally didn't, you know, I wouldn't have said it as early as Nori did, but yeah, it's something that we definitely been wanting to do for a long time, and we're working towards it. So it's very real, you know. Now who's on it? I can't say as of yet because until we finally have it all locked in. And we turn back around to the people we've talked to, we don't know if they've moved on or they're ready to go with us, you know?
All right, last question. Mentorship. Do you have any people that you mentor?
Any people that I actually mentor, like interns?
Just in general, just people that you have relationships with, that you try to guide them, or they go to you and talk to you and things like that. about their careers?
I'm always there's a lot of people that hit me up from time to time, and I definitely like to share whatever knowledge I have. I mean, even though I charge for it consulting wise, but obviously I'm not being a dick. Like if I actually like to help people, man. So if I can pass on any information that I've learned, I always try to pass it on. I definitely have a couple of people that hit me up on the regular, and then there's the youngins in the crew that have been around interning with us when we were doing on the marketing side, and that I try to like mentor them. So yeah, there's a good handful of people that I kind of guess you could say I mentor.
And who were some of your mentors coming up?
That's the thing, man. I didn't really have any mentors. Well, I lie. It's not that I didn't. One thing that I did is there was this local crew, or group, better said, called Mundi Dialect out of Miami that were in my immediate area of Kendall. And back then, just to be able to press up a record, a single on vinyl was like a big deal. Like that was like, whoa, damn, you're professional. You kind of made it to a certain level. And these guys had pressed a single on vinyl, and I thought it was just amazing. And they were like doing shows, and they had this little record label. So me not having any mentors and not knowing anybody in the industry, I asked them if I could just basically be kind of like an intern to them, like just an assistant, just so I can be around them and kind of like see how some of these things work, like setting up a show and performing, doing the show and going to the studio and the process of pressing vinyl and ask them any questions, in the process. And so those guys, in a sense, I would say are like the only kind of like mentors I had to a degree. And I did learn a lot, and through my experiences with them is where I really found, like my passion that I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Because it was through them. They were actually opening up for Redman. It was one of the first times that I think it was the first time Redman performed in Miami. And they were opening up, and they asked me to announce them on stage, which telling me that at 17 or 18, and I had never talked in front of a like 1,000 people or anything like that. I never did anything like that. Was like some crazy shit to me. So they told me to do it, and when I remember hopping up on stage and introducing them, and I just was like, hell yeah, this is what I want to do with life,
Oh yeah.
So yeah, man, Mundi Dialect.
All right, well, again, man, thank you for all your time, man. At DJ EFN, I mean, you really don't need, everybody who's listening should already know who EFN is. But hey, I've taken more than enough time from you, and I appreciate you taking the time out.
No problem.
But yeah, man, that's about it, man. And best of luck to you and safe travels. And I will definitely be, stay tuning in to everything that you're doing.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. We'll definitely do part 2 soon.
For sure, definitely, man. All right, well, you be easy, all right?
Take it easy, man. Peace.
All right, peace.